Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with David Becker, who has been all over the freaking world since the last time we talked.
That's true, I have, yeah.
Yeah,
Good to
you
see you,
have,
Bob.
and also we're going to talk about his new project, Gravitationally Bound, which is quite a project, quite a feat. It's really something. We'll get into that a little bit more. So
Okay.
you were just talking about your setup or your trap. What were we getting into when I,
I discovered that with Zoom, I did a thing with Martin Taylor recently, and if you
yeah,
set it for musicians and you wear headphones, you can hear the guitar.
yeah.
It,
Hey,
is it
bring
that?
up your microphone a little bit
Let's see if I can. Is
because
that
now
better?
you've gotten kind of far away when you
Okay.
sit back.
I
Oh,
think I think I have to be a little closer to the mic, so
yeah,
I'll do
it
that when I
sounds a
talk.
lot. There's that distance thing, in sound,
Right. Yes.
the room starts to take over. So.
As it does. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the closer you can get, the better off we are while you're talking. So that's a good thing. So you were dealing with Martin Taylor, and what was happening?
We just did a podcast together. He does this guitar hang with a
Yeah,
bunch of his students, and so I played a little. We talked, and it was fun. So
he's a great guy.
yeah,
He's a great
yeah.
guy. What a gentleman. English, the quintessential English gentleman.
Well, we share the same birthday,
Do
so
you
we're
really?
both October 20th. He's 5 years older, but we have the same birthday. So
Wow.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good thing to know. Okay, so we are talking about the fact that you're traveling all over the world, playing all over the place.
Yes, since I last saw you, when was that? Last year, December or November, I think.
Might have been.
I was in New Zealand for a tour, and then I've been doing a bunch of dates here in the States, and I've got several more coming up.
You
And of
might want
course,
to
I
bring
did
your
the
mic.
album.
Can you bring your
I
microphone up some more?
I will get closer to the. Is this better?
Yeah, that's much
Okay,
better. Yeah.
okay,
Um, so you were in New Zealand
yep.
and then continue.
And then I came back and I did the record, which I have to preface that with a little story because Ken Calais, who's an old friend of mine, who was the Fleetwood Mac guy,
Yeah.
uh, we've known each other for many, many, many years. I used to babysit for Colby, his daughter, when she was a little girl, and moved his house several times. But in any case, we worked on many, many projects over the years, but lately we haven't seen each other too much. And he sent me a text about February of this year, just before I was going to New Zealand, and said, "Hey, David, next time you come to California, let's make some music in the new studio." And so I'm like, well, Ken, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, we just built this new surround sound studio. I want you to record something in immersive sound. So I said, okay, I have a couple days before I go to New Zealand. I'm doing a jazz festival in Central California. I'll come down. And I own all the music from Planets, the live show I've been doing.
Yeah.
And so I figured I wanted to have those pieces recorded. So I thought that would be a good opportunity. So I just figured I'm going to go in and do one piece. And I went in and I did one piece. And then I met his partner, Nittany Paris, who her husband is an astrophysicist. So, and he works with NASA. So I told her about planets and she looked it up and she's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Do you have more music? And I said, yeah, I've got a whole album's worth of stuff. And so she said, well, we have to do a whole album and we'll block the studio out. When can you come? I said, well, I'm going to New Zealand for a couple of weeks. When I come back, give me a week to, decompress and I'll fly to LA. And so I flew to LA and I worked with Ken and his engineer, Klaus Trelby, who's an amazing engineer. He's also a co-producer on the record as well as Ken is and myself. And we just recorded all the pieces from Planets in surround sound. And I wrote the title track Gravitationally Bound just before I went in the studio because I thought instead of just all the planets, I needed a title track. And what Gravitationally Bound is it's one static chord through the
Right.
entire piece of music, but it moves through lots of key changes. And I actually got a nice compliment. I played it live at one of the studio opening parties for the engineer that worked with Tom Petty. And he said, man, he said, I don't know how you managed to do that with all these chord changes, but with that one chord, it's amazing. And I said, well, thank you. Coming from you, that's a great compliment. So, so.
Well, I'm going to pay you a compliment. It's intended to be a compliment. You're a composer that just happens to play the guitar.
Well, thank you. Well, that was always my intention. You
Yeah.
know, it's funny because I started composing music when I was a kid. I was like 4 or 5 and just play stuff on the piano, and it was always my intention I'm celebrating 40 years this year of touring. I set out on my first tour in August of '84
Yeah,
with our little EP, and we went to Germany and we did a bunch of dates there, and then we did all across the country. And it was always my intention to write music and play that
right.
music. I love playing standards, and I can play all those tunes great, but I've learned a lot about composition from that material in order to facilitate what I want to do as a composer. And I think I've been afforded that opportunity. This is my 20th album, and I have a pretty big catalog of stuff that's pretty diverse. And I'm excited. We're going to do another project probably next year at Abbey Road with a string quartet. Ken and I are talking about that, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm grateful for the fact that I've been able to document so much music.
What people that know you through your original recordings, the songs, the planets, for example, and now Gravitational Bound, which is that they would not, if they hadn't heard you do something else, they wouldn't realize what an accomplished straight ahead guy you are.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, there's many records that, especially from the David Becker Tribune catalog, that I get people all the time telling me, I bought Long Peter Matson. It was my first jazz guitar record, and I've heard that from a lot of guys,
Yeah,
which is a great compliment. I mean, I would say, well, why didn't you buy Wes Montgomery? But the fact that they bought me was the conduit to go to whatever they went to. But there are people that love Third Time Around. There are people that love Nevsky Prospect. There are people that love Batavia. There's people that love The Lonely Road. There's people that love Where's Henning. And that's all. But it's the thing is, if you listen to all those records,
right,
you will hear a thread of
right.
me and all that. So it's not like it's some yin yang thing where I'm kind of doing this and doing that. I've always tried to incorporate a lot of variety in what I do because I like that as a music fan.
Yeah,
I'm that you have to relate to that guy before anything else. And as far as the standard stuff, I mean, I just approach those like I would anything else that I would write. I don't look at All the Things You Are any differently than I do Waltz for Lavinia. In fact, that's a tough piece to solo over. I had to really work hard on my own music to be able to solo over that stuff because it's not a given that you're going to write something and be able to do that. Some guys just write stuff that fits into their playing.
right. I
That's
know.
cool.
I
You know, I mean, that's cool, but I've always been to the thing like I want to challenge myself as an improviser and a composer. In fact, all that music that's on Gravitationally Bound, with the exception of the title track, was what started out as improvisations for the
right.
Space Channel thing that I did, and they evolved into and they still evolve. They're still not set as just this length. They move and they change as every time I do them in a live performance.
So where do you get your rhythmic inspiration from? Because you do not. When I talk about composition, I mean I'm hearing a lot of non-guitaristic rhythmic beds, if you will, and it's almost I don't know how to say it. It's almost like I want to say the leader of the band is a percussionist, but
well, it is, yeah,
but it is,
yeah, yeah,
it's very it's like you get what I'm saying, that
yeah.
you're very rhythmically, the music is very rhythmically driven, and it's not the typical rhythms that you would hear from even the best guitar players.
Well, there's a reason for that, and that the main reason is I started out as a drummer.
Ah,
When I was a little boy, I wanted to play the drum every Christmas, and I did get one. And I just naturally, I actually got sticks and a practice pad, even a little toy drum set, and I could always play naturally. But I didn't have, yeah. Well, I mean, I've got these guys here that I use in the live show, so I just gravitated towards it naturally. Now, my brother ended up playing drums, and he's a great drummer and a great educator, but he had the discipline to sit down and learn all the rudiments.
yeah,
I could just play. But that element of that stuck with me as a musician when I went on to play trumpet and later guitar. And I also spent a great deal of time with great drummers, and also the great drum teacher Freddie Gruber imparted a lot of stuff on me because I hung with him probably as much as my brother did,
right,
in circumstances where I learned a lot about time and feel. And that is really something that I think a lot of guitar players don't have. They don't have the understanding of being inside the time and what perpetuates that. Because, for instance, the song on the record Earth, it's the 6/8, and that is the heartbeat of the planet. And all that 6/8 rhythm from Africa is in the underlying feel of everything we have, from jazz to blues to rock and roll to bossa novas to, salsas. And understanding that evolution, I think, is really, really important, and it will make you a better guitar player. So my suggestion to guitar players is go find a drummer or a percussionist and just hang with them for a day and just ask them questions about rhythmic figures and play and try to understand it from that standpoint. I think it'll do you a lot of good. I mean, it certainly has helped me a great deal.
Well, you know what I did? Of course you don't. That's why it's rhetorical. I went and took drum lessons.
There you go. Yeah.
I took a dozen drum lessons from the guy at Georgia State University,
Okay.
and I can't play drums. I mean, I've only begun, but I was to your point. Here I am playing with all these drummers. Playing. At that time, I was learning straight ahead. I was at Georgia State University, and I go, "What the f what is that guy thinking about?"
Mhm.
I know what I'm thinking about. I'm waiting for him to shut up so I can play. I mean, it's you know how musicians are.
Right.
And I was that guy, and I said, well, what is he doing? And why do I like what he's doing, and why do I not like what he's doing? I mean, want to. So I went and took a bunch of lessons, and at least I got a rudimentary understanding of what was going on, and
Do you?
it makes a big difference in your
Yes.
playing.
Well, do you know who Don Ellis was, the big band leader?
I do not.
Okay, well, if you don't know him, check him out. Don Ellis wrote some incredible odd time big band stuff. And he actually went to Freddie Gruber and studied the drums for a short period of time because he said, all of my drummers don't know how to play my music. And I want to know how I can show them what to play, or at least how to approach the concept. And I mean, that makes total sense to be, drummers. I mean, there are many, many guys who play drums or at least have drums in their background, understanding that fundamental, and that's so important to the whole thing because we think of rhythm guitar as being this, which is that's fine, but that element of it, what is perpetuating that? It's not just the up and down motion. There's inner motion going on there,
Right.
and the circle of time. Like if I'm doing, let me just show you something. If I take my little piece of paper here and put it in my strings, and I start to do something like I'll just do the groove for Gravitationally Bound. So it's this, Now I'm going to give a 4 on the floor. And then these guys are going to accentuate certain things about it as well. And you can hear the accents, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, all of that stuff, although it's intuitive for me now, I had to learn a lot about it. I had to get inside. I remember actually in LA in the early 80s playing with a bunch of Latin guys on the street in Venice Beach. And we were all playing they were playing clave and I was playing the cowbell. And I had to really, listen and know how to put that thing in the right place. Because if you don't play the clave in the right place, man, they'll look at you funny and go like,
Oh
hey.
no, they'll do more look at you funny.
Yeah. They'll say, hey man, play good clave. But it was a great experience. And I hung with Luis Conte a few times because I know him, and Richie Garcia is a good friend of mine. So all that stuff has translated into me as a musician. I don't think of myself as just a guitar player. I'm a musician, and that's my job to be able to understand every element, harmony, melody, and rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started out by saying you're really a composer that expresses himself through the guitar, and I should have expanded that to say, you're as much a the guy with the baton, that guy,
Oh, the band
conductor,
leader, yeah,
as
the
much of a
conductor.
conductor.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I was a little boy, my first record that I remember listening to really intensely was Edvard Grieg's Piano Concerto in A minor, and I used to conduct with a Tinker Toy in front of that. And I didn't know this, but I would be able to equate the major and minor passages with this painting my parents had of a German mountain. And the major passages were this big snow-capped mountain, and the minor passages were this sort of dark, crest that was on the side of it. And that's how I still see music. I always see it in a visual sense.
You know
So
what's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just that yeah, I see it in a visual sense. So
You know what's interesting is you're making me think about a conductor. You know, so many conductors can play every instrument in the orchestra.
yes,
And
or
oftentimes they can play it better than the guy that's playing first chair, you
yeah,
know?
it's
And
true.
yet all the audience sees is this,
Yeah,
you know.
right,
That's and so they think, well, what the hell? I can do that.
right.
And no, you
Well,
can't actually. You know.
I think the thing about a conductor is that it's not just him conducting the band to keep the time, it's also him with the intensity of the markings in the music
Oh,
because
absolutely. Yeah, no,
you know
I
I mean, even though the music is written, the orchestra has to be able to respond to the guy up front who's leading them and giving them that energetic thing like, hey, this is what's happening and this is the
yeah.
drama of the
I need a little
music.
more. I need a little more of you. I
Yeah,
need a little more
yeah,
of you. I need a little less
a
of
little less of
you.
you, sure,
Okay, now
exactly.
make sure you're,
Yeah,
I mean, no, you talk about genius. I mean, those guys are incredible. So getting back to you, that's kind of what I mean, if you're playing a blues line over, C jam blues or something like that, people will hear you play something.
right.
And obviously you'll play it quite well and you're going to have your own feel and your thing. But what people don't, even guitar players don't understand is how well informed the choices you're making are.
Well, I
You follow,
appreciate that.
you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do. And well, a lot of that comes from here's what I believe and what I've learned is that, as an improvising musician, we make choices in real time.
Right,
And the thing about composition is that you make choices in step time. You have more time to think about what you want
right,
to do. But when you get to that place where you're able to improvise something and hear something out of what you've done, meaning that as soon as I play, if I play the line like this from, which is on Gravitationally Bound, which is Venus, now I'm going to hear something. It may not be the thing that somebody else hears, but that's what I hear, and I
right,
start to react to that and play that. So you have to really be facilitated. Lyle Mays, who is somebody that I knew, not really deeply, but we hung a few times. He said things about composition and about improvisation that made so much sense to me that it's the same thing, but he said that you have to have drama and you have to have these things in it. And a good solo over C Jam Blues is going to have all that as well.
right,
So in the hands of Joe DiOrio, him playing C Jam Blues, it would be Joe DiOrio. It would be his personality. Somebody else might approach it like, well, this is a C Jam Blues, so I'm going to play a
right,
Mixolydian scale or something like that,
right,
which doesn't really resonate with the music other than it's kind of scholastic in the sense.
right.
So I do think that, I appreciate your compliment to me and I take that to heart, but I've worked very hard on that. I've really spent a
Oh,
lot of time
absolutely.
analyzing things and as far as how I approach soloing and how I approach melodies, how I approach the trajectory of a melody, and not only in a sense of composing, but also when I'm playing a tune. I
Right.
want to take a memorable melody in a solo over all the things you are, so you're not just listening to a bunch of noodling. There's a narrative in there, and I think that's really really important to always keep in mind when you're playing.
The guys that do that well, um, are the guys that I have a tendency to listen to.
Same for
Uh,
me,
yeah, yeah. The
yeah,
guys that understand. And the other thing, and we talked about this before on the channel, the show, the whatever we want to call this. Um, you know, Understanding the lyric or the story that you want to convey
yes,
is a big deal. Whereas, when I see stuff and and I don't want to offend anybody, when I see stuff that says, well, you play the Lydian, here and
right,
you do this, that,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just not, I want to say, oh man,
no,
well,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Next, I mean,
yeah,
and you can hear that in people's playing.
sure,
And that's a stage that I think everybody kind of goes through, or a lot of people go through.
Well, I think that the reason they go through that is because they want to have the secret to how you play.
Yeah,
But it's like learning a language. If I mean, I speak German and Dutch because of my heritage fluently. And so if I was going to teach you to say something in German, I wouldn't give you this long conjugated sentence. I would give you a small phrase and
right.
tell you to walk into a bakery and order a coffee and a piece of cake.
Or
And if
where's
you
the
got
bathroom? Where's the
Yeah,
bathroom?
yeah, exactly. And if you got a result, you would feel satisfied, like, wow, okay, I know how to use that. It's the same
Right.
thing now when you're taking musical phrases, it's like, what good does it do me to play a scale for G7 when all I need for the G7 is these three notes, or even, and that's what I want to be able to say. But
Right.
also what you talked about narrative, the thing that I find that's interesting is that I've learned a lot about the standards. A lot of those tunes were written, and then the lyricist came later and put lyrics to it, and he had a whole different vision of
Right.
what that was. But it certainly does add to the ability to understand the melody,
Right.
because the melody is what perpetuated. It's the opposite, Elton John writes all the music after Bernie Taupin gives him the lyrics, so he's got this phonetic thing to work with. But what an amazing guy to be able to sit down and come up with these melodies the way that those words are sung. So there is a connection, and there is a storyline with everything. I just saw Jeff Lynne. Lori and I went to St. Louis to see him. That was amazing. I mean, what
Yeah,
a
I
great
got to tell you,
storyteller.
it's really funny. So yesterday I was at the chiropractor's office, and one of their tunes from like the 70s came on. And I can't remember the title of it, but I thought to myself, holy crap.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't hear music like that anymore. I mean, we
no.
just don't. I mean, the amount of work and effort and understanding and everything that went into that and
Well,
the creativity is
the
crazy.
attention to detail is
The
what it
attention to
really is.
detail. We just don't hear the details in a are in are they spend a lot of time putting detail in different places than they used to. Let's just put it that way. Let's be kind.
Well, also too with guitar players and musicians in general and their soloing, one thing that I'm really a stickler about is like you got to know what you played. So if you
Right.
play a chorus of the blues, you should be able to know in the third chorus what you played over that G7 if you're playing a blues in whatever key in that first chorus. And a lot of guys have musical amnesia. They forget stuff. And that's like getting up and doing a speech about yourself and like 15 minutes into it some guy says, "What's your name?" and you go like, boy, I don't remember. It's, I mean, but it takes a while to understand. The thing I think that's important is you have to really understand how you sound, how you play, what do you do, and we have the recording possibilities on our telephones and with computers to record. We recorded every rehearsal that we did in the early days of the David Becker Tribune.
Right.
I still have tapes to that, and we rehearsed 6 months long. We did a couple of gigs in LA. We got a steady residency for a year, and then we went on the road. And I mean, that was by design.
Right.
I had no idea that we would how to do that, but that was that was the goal.
Right.
And that really added a lot to the whole thing about understanding how we sounded and what we could
Right.
do and how to develop. A lot of people just play and kind of go like, well, I just played that, and what did you play? I don't remember.
Yeah, this
And
this
you
th-
had
this one's an A,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this one's an E,
Yeah, I played the E minor scale. Well, what did you play in that scale?
Right.
What line did you play? You
Yeah.
should know that you played. I mean, if you listen to Charlie Parker, you're going to hear a lot of you're going to hear all that stuff, and he's going to, it's going to repeat itself. But the phrases, Wes Montgomery, the phrases are going to change where they come, but you
Right.
understand that's his vocabulary, and
Right.
they use it very, very well. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a vocabulary that is like that long. You just need to have a good chunk of information that you know how to use, and with that you can do a lot. But you have to understand what it is. If you don't, it's really difficult, and it becomes more like I'm fishing for something. And of course, we all have our good and bad days. But the more you can start to really understand, Joe DiOrio said that. He said, learn to play the solo over a tune. And
Right.
that means understand that the fundamental of what you play, that first thing, how do I approach it? If you listen to me play All the Things You Are, or How Insensitive, or
Right.
Days of Wine and Roses now, and you listen to me 40 years ago, you would hear a thread. You'd hear a younger
Right.
guy, but you go like, oh wow, he did that then. and I still do it now, but I may have altered some things and added some to the whole thing because I've developed and grown as a musician and as a person.
Well, speaking of that, let's get kind of why we're here. Um, and Gravitationally Bound. Uh, I listened to a whole bunch of it today. It's a beautiful piece of work. The
Thank you.
fact that I think it's in 5.1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually in surround sound. We recorded an immersive sound. Ken and Klaus built a great studio in Westlake Village, and I'm
Uh-huh.
the guinea pig. They did a remix of Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark, which got nominated for a Grammy a year and a half ago, I believe it was, and they remixed Rumors in surround sound. I think they did a couple of tracks of Colby's, but I'm the first production that
Yeah,
they've actually recorded in that format. It's available on CD in stereo. We did a separate stereo mix,
right.
but you can get the immersive sound mix, which is pretty amazing. So
Well, I was going to say, so much of your music has got that ethereal thing going on, planets, that you've got like the perfect kind of style to for them to take advantage of all of that.
well, that was, I mean, it worked out well for that because, in the sense of when I start looping things and putting parts in there, we were able to take that, and Klaus and I decided immediately that we were going to put this over here and put this over here. And that actually inspired some ideas that I hadn't thought about when I
Let,
was in the
let me ask you
studio.
a question because I wasn't able to. What's the total instrumentation that's on the recording? That's what I thought.
There is a bass on Gravitationally Bound,
Yeah,
and there is a piano chord on Saturn. But everything else is all
there,
coming from
there
this
it
guy.
is.
Yeah.
A lot to be said for that heritage, huh?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Is that a
So
535?
it's a what it is. It's the David Becker signature, but it's a combination of a Sweet 16. It's got a 3-inch body,
Yeah,
the depth. It's got a spruce top,
yeah.
and it's got maple sides and back, but it's got a 575 neck, which is
Okay.
mahogany, and it's with no bells and whistles.
Is it
This,
20? Is it 24 and three quarter or 25 or
uh,
25 and a half?
I think it's 25 and a half. I have to look at the
Full
specs, but
full
you
length,
can
yeah.
look it up. Yeah, you can look it
Yeah,
up.
no, I
It
just
goes up
wondered
to
if you
C.
knew because it's a
I
really
should. I should.
it's
Look
I'm,
look
I'm
up look it up
I'm
online. You'll see
I'm
it.
the only geek that would ask that question.
But
Um,
there's a piezo in here, and this
yeah,
is a Seymour Duncan that actually Seymour gave me this pickup. The production models that they made about 20 of them,
yeah.
have the newer jazz pickup from Seymour. But this is one Seymour pulled out of his desk and said, "Put that in there." So go
Sure.
figure.
Well, he's a good guy to have
Oh,
you.
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, all right, I'll take that advice. We'll go with that. So, your the record is out,
Yes.
and it's at all the usual suspects. And if they
Yes.
want the immersion version of it, if you will, is how do they get their hands on that?
There are several places you can go to. You can get Apple Music has the Dolby Atmos mix. You can get
Right.
that, or there are several websites that are selling it. I can send you the links to that have it as the dedicated surround mix. We have CDs that we have available too, which you can order from Artist Max or through my website if you like. And at the shows, I'm going to be playing a lot of Planet shows till the end of the year, so I'll have
Right.
those with us.
We're going to talk about that
Yeah,
before you go, but
yeah.
um, so let me just ask a question about that. How did you get, and I think we talked about this last year, but I want to ask it again. How did you get so inspired by astrophysics, if you will?
Well, I met Chad Malum from Space Channel and when he started the channel, and we talked about music, and I said, music and the universe and our solar system are related, and how music moves and how harmony and melody
Yeah.
and so he thought that was great. So he was taking pieces of my older catalog and using them in these cool space videos. And then he just asked me, he said, "Could you just improvise pieces for the planets?" And I said, "Sure." So we did it in Brownsville, Texas, about 3.5 years ago in an empty theater. I just started, like that thing I played for Venus. That's the first thing I played.
Yeah.
Or I played, the thing for Mars, or whatever I played for Earth. And those are the things that became these pieces for planets. Now, in the Planet Show, I do other pieces as well. I do something for Aurora Borealis. I do something for the clouds. I do something for different parts of the Earth. It's a 90-minute show, and it's really a lot of fun for me because it's a challenge. I get to do everything musically that I love to do. So
Uh,
anything from solo guitar to this bombastic orchestral thing. So
yeah, and you've really mastered the art of the looper. I mean,
well, it's a work in progress. That's what I'll say. You know.
yeah, I mean I mean you've got it together
Well,
for
thank you.
sure. When loopers first came out, I was one of those guys. Well, it's not a real, I was one of those guys. Get off my lawn. What are you doing with
Right?
that thing?
Yeah. Right. Right.
And then Schofield did a thing with Looper, and
Yeah.
well, if it's good enough for John, it's good enough for David.
Yeah.
It's good, maybe I need to refigure that thing. And then I started messing with it, and I really suck at it. I mean, I'm just not very good at it. So when I see guys that are like, got it all figured out, and can make it sound like something, and then that amazes me. And then when you can master it and do the things that you're able to pull off, it's crazy stunning. So you have a bunch of gigs coming up.
I do. Yeah, I've got a gig next week in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. Got one at the end of the month in the Dalles, Oregon. Got one at the beginning of the month of October in Springfield, Illinois. On the 19th of October, I'll be in Taos, New Mexico. On the 23rd, I'll be in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And on the 24th, I'll be in Connecticut. You can check the schedule on davidbeckertribune.com or check me out on Facebook. There's a David Becker fan page. You can go to the Instagram. YouTube will have all that information up, and Gravitationally Bound is available everywhere. So please pick up a copy. It got added to Atlanta last week to the jazz station there. So
Yeah, no, I saw that. That's amazing. That's wonderful. That's great news. A real honest to God radio station. Who'd have thunk it?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Well, listen, David, it's a real pleasure to have you on, and I admire your artistry, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's incredible that when you can take a concept record and records like you've been making, and develop the audience, and when under get them to get their ears together, and develop the audience for your music the way you have is tremendous. That that's
Well, I
that's
appreciate that.
that's a huge um undertaking, and it's not easy, and not very many people are able to pull that off.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm always grateful for your guys' support. So
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much, Bob Bakert, for Jazz Guitar Today with the maestro David Becker. Keep doing it, man. Keep doing it.
Thanks, Bob.
Say hello to your lovely wife for me,
I
and
sure will.
keep doing your thing, brother.
Take
Well,
care of yourself, man.
all right. See you, man. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.